Welcome to the Dangerous Faith podcast. We'll title these types of episodes Dangerous Life. And that's what we'll be talking about, life, faith, and culture. I think I'm starting this for a couple different reasons. One, it's very practical. It's easier to make content, videos, podcasts with a team of people. And two, also, we need content targeted at Gen Z. Because Gen Z, we'll talk about this today, it's the least religious generation yet in America. And so we need, as Christians, to talk about it. All right, what's the best way to get into the culture, to evangelize, to share our faith? And so that's what Dangerous Life is going to try to do. Talk about things that are affecting Gen Z and all that good stuff. So I have a team with me. Very thankful, very blessed. Justin, we'll start with you. We'll go around the table. Justin, what's your name?
I'm Justin Wygand. I'm happy to be here, part of the Dangerous Faith team, to help spread the word of Christ to different parts of America and possibly the globe. I am going back to school to be a video game developer, and that's my TED Talk.
That is Justin's TED Talk. All right, Blake, what's your name?
Hi, my name's Blake Tetro. I am Justin's life partner.
Yes.
Just kidding. We've just been best friends for a while. I'm very blessed to be a part of the Dangerous Faith team. I guess a little bit about me. I'm going back to school for teaching and ministry, so very excited. Hope that we can use this platform to really reach a lot of people. So.
Good. I'm excited. All right. I won't do this with everyone. So, Mr. Smith, what's your name?
My name is Mr. Smith. No, it's Spencer, and I got called to ministry just a couple years ago, around this time, actually 2 years ago. And I just got married a couple months ago, and right now I'm working on Redstone Arsenal as a contractor. If I tell you what I do, I would have to kill you. So
There you go. Top secret.
As far as we can go there.
All right. Next up, young lady.
Yes, I'm Mackenzie Adams. My better half is missing today, Isaac, but we've been married a little over a year. And yep, I'm an event and wedding florist. I love flowers and I love spreading the gospel.
There you go. Those are two good things. All right. Next up.
Yeah, I'm Chloe Adams, and I'm this handsome man's wife. I'm happy to be here and a part of this team. I graduated from UAB with a degree in kinesiology back in April, and I'm going back to PT school in January.
Wonderful. The one and only.
Yes. My name is Zeke Adams. As said before, I'm this beautiful girl's husband. Beautiful wife's husband.
Adult female, yes.
Adult female, yes. No, I go to school for civil engineering. I'll be graduating in the spring with that. I'm happy to be here, I guess, too, like everyone else.
Yes, what y'all don't see behind the scenes is I secretly have weapons pointed at them to where they have to say they're happy to be here.
Please send help.
Please send help, yes, Morse code. And, okay, so we're going to dive into our topic for today, which is Gen Z and Christianity. What is the relationship there? So this is kind of anything goes as long as we don't yell at each other. And we don't get too wildly inappropriate. But, okay, so I'll start us off with a question. In your experience, what do people your age, school or work, think of Christianity? The church, Christians, maybe faith in general, but among people our age, because we're right at the tail end of millennial and Gen Z. So what do you think? Anyone? All right.
I think they're the most agnostic generation thus far. They say, I'm part of them. So for the most part, our generation they want to find the truth, but they think at the same time it's confident or it's cocky to say that you have the truth.
Yeah.
And they want to basically say, okay, I think there is a God out there, but I don't want to hold to its standard. So they say, well, I don't know who the real God is. And,
Gotcha. Okay, so very agnostic. Anyone want to follow that up? Any other thoughts?
Something that I tend to notice about people in our generation is they kind of let their identity get in the way. That goes for many different things: political identity, sexual identity, gender identity. They let that get in the way because much of that stuff, I'll leave out the political identity actually, but much of that stuff does not fit in with the biblical view.
Yeah.
So I believe that they think that just because they have these thoughts, they cannot be Christian, so they remove themselves from the equation altogether.
Absolutely. That's true. I think those are some good thoughts. Anyone else? So I'm going to move a little bit over here to this side of the table. We have some UAB students. What is that like, being a Christian on campus, the school's perhaps relationship with Christianity, other students? Do you two have any thoughts on that, Chloe and Zeke?
Yeah, so from my experiences, I've kind of noticed there's two sides of the story. I think either one side is like the whole nominal Christian, where they call themselves a Christian and they maybe go to church, maybe read the Bible sometimes, but I don't really see them truly live it out, and the beliefs of that are kind of, they differ from the Bible. And then the other side is they've had so many like past experiences or like people that have maybe hurt them in some way that have called themselves a Christian, and so they're totally just closed-minded to the idea of Christianity.
Yeah, definitely. Zeke?
Yeah, I'd say it's similar. At least, so I'll speak mainly for my degree field. My degree field's civil engineering, so it's going to be a little bit more conservative. Just like in my experience, the people that I'm around, it's a little bit of a mix, but it's majority conservative. And then I would say it's like, if they're Christian, they're not outspoken about it. It's not normally until like I talk to them about it that they'll be like, yeah, I'm a Christian, or I've been to church, or I've had experience, and they're just kind of like so-so on it. And then I'd say the other half is like, for those that would say that, they wouldn't say like they're anti-Christian, but they would say, yeah, I've heard of it, and they're just like, meh. They want to try and like play the fence and pretend like I'm not really on either side.
Yes.
I'm not really against it, and it has some good things, but I'm also not really, for it.
Apathetic.
Yeah. I think that's just a lack of like really thinking it through or stuff like that.
I think that sometimes in the church we fear people being overly hostile to us, getting yelled at, being called certain names, and that makes us afraid. But I think if we shouldn't fear anything, but if we were to have any sort of, worries, I would go in the opposite direction. I think apathy, people just not caring, oh, you believe in God, whatever, I don't need God, I can be good on my own. I think apathy is the greater enemy to the faith than open hostility, because I think you can do more with passion. So I guess if y'all could live in a culture of everyone's apathetic, if they're not a believer, they just don't care, or everyone else outside the church was openly hostile to the faith, what would you prefer? This is kind of just a random question. Openly hostile or apathetic?
That's a hard one.
That is a great question.
Yeah.
I would probably go hostile, in all honesty.
You prefer that?
Prefer hostility, yeah. Apathetic, I mean, at least with hostile, they would be willing to engage with you, even if it is to want to hurt you. They'd still want to engage with you. I mean, it kind of like, you look at some of the people in the Bible. I mean, we talked about James, for instance. They were very hostile towards him. In fact, he was thrown off of a building, and then stoned and then beaten with a club after that. So
yeah, things did not go well for him towards the end.
No, not at all.
Yes.
But if if they're apathetic, it's like there'd be no point in having a conversation. It just kind of one ear out the other, and that's frustrating. You can't really. I don't know. I don't think you can change, or I don't think you can really guide people when they just don't care. It's just it is what it is. But at least with hostility, they'd be willing to engage you. And
I think so.
Yeah.
It's hard to, and this is with any topic, it's hard to talk to people who don't care about anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's something. I think even if there is possibly misplaced passion, at least there's passion towards something, and I think that's better than just being apathetic and not caring. But I don't know. Maybe it's just a personal thing, but it's better to care in something than to care in absolutely nothing. What is the meaning to life at that point?
Yes,
that's a good point.
I think y'all are saying, you're making a lot of sense there. Now, Justin, you talked a little bit about this, why there's this potential hostility. You talked a little bit about identity, but let's go deeper into that with this next question. why is Gen Z, from the studies, typically shows that Gen Z is the least religious or least Christian generation in America yet? So anyone have any guesses or any ideas for why that is?
I'm going to say, and this is just my opinion, but I'm going to say it either has something to do with the culture that our media presents.
Okay.
Because, like back then, we have access to everything. Like, everything that we need to know about the world is in our pockets. Like, we can just whip out a phone, get any question. Every people that we have that we put in, like, an influencer position, they're really no good. Like, back then in the day, you kind of just, like, relied on friends, family, your neighbor, close people around you. Now that we have access to all these different cultures and stuff like that, and what social media brings, it just kind of, I don't know, I guess it just broadens their perspective on things. And when you have the wrong people in those positions, it influences influences young minds.
Yeah. The tough part about social media is there's a lot of good to it. It exposes you to a lot, but then it also exposes you to a lot of nonsense as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so people just get, yeah. Anyways, that's well put. Anyone else? Any ideas? Any thoughts, Justin?
Blake, that was very well spoken. I do think media is a huge problem nowadays, and that can be said for really both sides, no matter what, because we like to spread what makes the people the most angry because it gets the most views. I think one of the biggest groups that has some of the biggest hang-ups about Christianity is the LGBTQ. The Bible does have a strong stance on how that stuff is. We are meant to be, God made us to be men and women made for each other. It's the perfect match with God at the center of that relationship. But people because they want to feel more special and more included in society, they give themselves different hats to wear, per se, like transgender, homosexual, bisexual, non-binary. I do think that's at play, and helicopter for sure.
Yes.
But something as well that we have to, I think, work on as Christians is not doing what things like the Westboro Baptist Church does. We need to be more loving to these people than holding up signs that says God hates fags, because that's not true. It's absolutely not true. God loves everybody. He may not love what you're talking about and what you're doing, but he loves you at the end of the day.
That is true.
I'm going to take a different perspective. I agree with what Justin's saying, but I think that your question was, why is Gen Z more non-religious today? Is that right?
Yes.
So I would say it's not really much different from the past in the sense of, I think that culture goes down the stream of culture. Like, if culture is typically Christian, like it was, 50, 60 years ago, you're going to have people who claim to be Christian, but they don't really hold Christian values or go to church or do anything that God commands in the Bible, but they'll call themselves Christians because that's what the culture's doing. And it's easy to go with the culture because there's not really much resistance there. I think today it's just that the culture isn't Christian anymore, so you have all these people that 50 years ago would have been Christian just cause culture that are now whatever the culture is today. So anti-Christian. I think that's part of it too.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Mackenzie, what do you think?
I think speaking on culture, but also just living in the United States in a very prosperous country, we kind of have the culture is very individualistic. We're kind of more, what we're told to care about is more towards ourselves, more our beliefs. If you believe something else, that's okay as long as it doesn't, interfere with mine or anybody else's. Especially since we're not in a major war, it's kind of easy, I think, for the younger generation to rely more on themselves and not see the need for a savior or for a religion, especially Christianity that says you have to die to yourself and serve God and serve others.
Amen to that.
Yes, that's a great point, that our faith asks us to serve something greater. You hear the word duty, you hear the word calling, and someone ultimately outside of yourself can say no. Whereas that doesn't go with what we like today. It's no one can tell me who I am or what to do.
I think also a big thing is, and we actually went to a camp a couple weeks ago. I took my students to camp a couple weeks ago, It was about being made in the image of God. And I think with social media and the focus on self, you're more likely to put everything that you have into what your phone says you should be, instead of actually looking at what God says you should be and what image you were created in.
Yes.
Like with the individualistic stuff, people want to be so selfish when Christianity tells you that Jesus is the center point of your life, not yourself.
Yes.
I think to go off what Spencer's saying is I think they're after something good. They're just getting it the wrong way. So let me elaborate on that. So like today, like we want to think of ourselves as individuals and we're super important and super valuable and all that stuff. Well, if we're just the ones, if there's no God and we're the ones saying that, that doesn't mean anything. If it's just me and you and I just say, hey, I'm super important, okay, so what?
Yes.
But as Christians, we have the true answer. We have the answer to that, and we have the correct answer. If there is a God who created us and designed us the way that we should be, and he tells us we're important, that actually means something.
Yes.
And he does find us valuable because he sent his son to die for us.
Absolutely. I think it gets into a little bit of. Oh, Chloe, I didn't want to cut you off. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say the first thing I thought of was the whole idea of like individualized freedom kind of increasing over the years. Like over the years, I think that the idea of like just do what you want, do what your heart tells you, you know, it doesn't matter. And then
Barbie told me that is what really mattered, Chloe.
well, sorry, Barbie.
Oh, man,
She lied.
Okay.
Yeah, she lied. But yeah, so I think that has just really increased over the years, and people have just started making all these exceptions to certain things. And then, you know, all these new laws are being created just to like, so everybody can be pleased and happy. And obviously we're never going to be 100% happy. But yeah, I think having that much freedom to just be who you are and do what you want to do can be really harmful.
Yes.
One other thing, going off Chloe and what I was saying, is like, think about it. It kind of makes sense that anxiety and depression are kind of up nowadays, because whenever you are the ruler of your life, as flawed as we are, because there's no one in here that hasn't made a mistake, whenever you become the rule and the ultimate judge, it's not surprising that I'm going to continually let myself down. I'm going to have anxiety and depression over things that I can't control. I mean, I don't have a stat to back that up. I'm just saying it's not surprising.
It makes logical sense, because if you are God over your own life, that's a lot of stuff to control. You can't pass the buck on to anyone else. Well, we still do, but it's like, oh, you have to make sure everything works out well. That makes a lot of sense. Any other thoughts before we move on to the next question?
Oh, I've got one more.
Mackenzie?
I think going along with what you were saying of being individualistic and kind of searching for that purpose and identity, I think Gen Z does do that. I actively see them, like you said, trying to identify with as much as possible as they can, trying to figure out exactly who they are. They're just looking in the wrong places, like you said, and because of that, like you said, is anxiety and depression and everything.
Absolutely. We're not made to find our identities in who we are attracted to. That's a part of you. That's not supposed to be all of you.
I think the reason, like, why that is, just going off what Mackenzie says, is, you know, and we've all been, everybody in this room, I guarantee, has been at that been in a point like that in their life where God calls us to die to ourselves. You know, pick up your cross and die to yourself. There is nothing, when you hear those words, especially when you're so comfortable in doing the thing that makes you happy, hearing those words, it is so that it just does not sound appealing.
Yeah.
But and I think that's what Gen Z hears, is like, they're like, why would I want to die? Like, I love to hang out with my friends and party all night long, or I love to post pictures on social media and everybody inflate my ego and stuff like that. Like, why in the world would I want to stop doing that if it makes me feel happy? And it's something that you told me, and it's stuck with me for a while, but it's comfortable misery.
Yeah.
Like, we're so comfortable being miserable that when God says, here's this wonderful thing that I have for you, it'll be painful because it's not going to be of the world and you're going to be rejected by the world. But what I have for you is so much better than what the world could ever offer.
Absolutely.
But we would rather choose to be comfortable in that because we know what's going to happen next. And that's where the anxiety and depression comes from. Like, I know I'm going to wake up and be anxious, but I'd rather wake up and be anxious than step outside whatever it is that I've made for something that God has prepared for me.
Yes, absolutely.
I think one thing that needs to be looked at is also showing our generation that these things don't last. Nothing about social media stays the same. It's always changing. The standard's always changing. What's fresh is always changing. But Jesus, the Bible, always stays the same. That standard stays the same. And that's what actually satisfies.
Yes.
When Jesus is always going to be there, when God's always going to be there for you, that's when you're fully satisfied. But you can get those hits of dopamine by looking at your photos, or your photos getting a ton of likes. You can get that. But
Spencer, you mean to tell me if I post a picture and I get a lot of likes and I feel really happy that night, that feeling of happiness does not last forever?
unfortunately, you're going to
like
wake
fake
up the next
news.
morning and it's not going to feel as great.
Goodness, Instagram has taught me nothing. No, I think you're exactly right there. Chloe?
Yeah, I think going off what Spencer's saying, how everything changes but God remains the same, can also be said for your identity, because, you know, a lot of people these days try to, you know, just change your identity to fit more of the culture and what the culture is saying. But since we as Christians can find our identity in God, then we never have to worry about that changing or wavering or going anywhere.
Yes, absolutely. Our identity is in Christ. He is the rock. Now, moving to...
Dwayne The Rock Johnson?
Yes.
That's exactly who I meant. Dwayne
Rock.
Johnson
The
was
Rock.
there thousands of years ago.
Dwayne.
Dwayne the Dwayneson. Anyways, moving to our last question. Okay, we talk about all these things, and I think they're good. What is the best way of taking what we're talking about and sharing it with the culture, with Gen Z? It's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing, what's the best way of going and sharing it? Any thoughts there, Justin?
I think one of the best ways to go about doing this and spreading the word is maybe not just trying to teach people the word outright, but show people what Christians are meant to do. Be kind, be caring, be charitable. I think that's how we reach these people, to show, like, hey, there's more joy than there is in being a good person than there is in doing these things. Like Blake said, partying, getting all these different likes on Instagram, you know, maybe show that there's joy in stopping focusing on yourself and focusing on helping other people and being a better person.
Absolutely.
I'm kind of in the camp of we should go partake in everything that they're doing, but just say that we're like Christians. You know what I mean?
I was thinking the same thing, Blake.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, for instance, I was thinking about becoming a fitness influencer, but just getting like Bible verses tatted on me, so when I take like thirst trap pictures,
Yes.
like they'll at least know where my standards are.
Because
John
we need to be relatable, right?
Right,
Relatability is the goal. So as long as we're doing everything the culture's doing, but we say psych Jesus, it's all okay.
That's all you gotta say. Psych Jesus. What's that? You just robbed somebody? Psych Jesus. Giving it to the poor.
Exactly. Robin Hood. And any other thoughts on, okay, what can we do to share the gospel with Gen Z specifically?
So yeah, it's through our love that they'll know us. I mean, that's biblical. And then you also have Paul, who says, "I'm all things to all people." Now, obviously not what Blake meant, in the sense of, but in the sense of, I think that something that we made a mistake of, we as Christians made a mistake of, like 50s, 60s, 70s, is we kind of like went away from the world and kind of like ran away and just did our own thing and like kind of let the world be what it is,
Yeah, we hid
instead
from
of being a part of the world and like living in the world, but not being of the world,
Yeah.
to be the light in the world. So I think the way we do that is, so there's two people that come to mind. There's the person who's doesn't really have a strong belief on Christianity, and there's the person who's been hurt by it. So for the person, and I think it's similar strategy for both. It's a little bit more work for the one who has been hurt by it, because I mean, you could take this for any situation, even if it wasn't like hurt by Christian. If you've been hurt in a relationship, or you've been hurt by an employer, or you know, a parent or something like that, you slowly start to build up this wall around your heart, and you don't do a good job of letting people in. So as Christians, what we have to do is, yeah, it sounds nice and easy, just go out there and throw a Bible at them and say, like, hey, believe in Jesus.
It's worked before, it'll work again.
And the word is important. I'm not saying we don't preach the word. I think what we do is we start to till the soil and start to break down the wall that they have up. Like, be relatable, like, be a friend to them. Don't just go up to a stranger and expect them to convert in 3 seconds. So, like, you know, for example, let's say I have some friends at school who aren't Christian. So, like, what I can do is what Chloe and what I think it was Justin was saying, like, we love them and we show them affection and we show like the light of Christ to them through our actions.
Mm-hmm.
And then down the line, like they'll notice that. Like Chloe's had people come to her at work. She won't admit this on camera, but she's had people come up like, "Where do you get all this joy from? Like, why are you just always so happy?"
And then Chloe says, "It's because I'm perfect."
Yes,
Because she's a
No.
robot.
No.
but I mean, like that's the light we should be. Like we should be able to. People should see a difference between us and the rest of the world,
Yes.
and it should be a good thing, not a bad thing.
Yes.
And then that's an open door to where if they're wanting to know how we got the joy we got, that's an open opportunity for us to share how we got it.
Absolutely.
I think it's that same way with anyone.
We have to live differently than everyone else, but not different in a snobby, I'm holier than thou way, but in an attractive way. So I think joy is really important there because if you, depending on the workplace you go to, we all have different jobs. Joy in the workplace can be very difficult to find.
It does not exist at Walmart distribution.
No, it doesn't.
Yes. And so we want to make sure that we are joyful as best we can, and we'll have bad days, sure, but just a general characteristic of that. It's a balance of, all right, being don't run away from the world, but also don't look exactly like the world and do everything that the world does. It's walking that tough middle ground of grace and truth. Blake, what did you want to say?
Just to like kind of add to that, or just another way that I don't know, I didn't want to lose my train of thought, but to quote you again, because you just
Oh goodness.
have these just these wisdom bombs, especially when it comes to Gen Z, and something that as a youth leader I've had to do with some of my youth kids, and I realize I'm going to have to do with my youth kids. It was the same thing that you did with me whenever I wanted you to be my mentor, and that's play the long game with them. Gen Z especially, and I mean it's probably been like this for all generations, but I guess it's just more prevalent in Gen Z, but they're so attached to the world that it's hard for them, even when they know what's right, and even the ones that genuinely, like, you can see God working on their hearts and really they're really wanting to change, letting go of some of those things that they know is comfortable or makes them happy, that's tough. And you'll see them backslide and struggle with it, but instead of like how we grew up, or at least how I grew up, we beat them over the head with it, and I've witnessed that before, and it was quite shameful, in my opinion. We play the long game with them. We be that shoulder to cry on. We celebrate the little victories, and we don't try to push them away, because Christ would never have pushed us away.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a Russell Moore quote that I came to mind that really, really has stuck with me since I read it. Think of non-Christians as not Christian yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens is when you view the non-believers out in the culture as not Christians yet, things seem so much more hopeful. So if there are lots of testimonies. Zeke, you and I were talking about that one YouTube channel that's all about testimonies. Mm-hmm. It's like, I don't know how to pronounce it, but something cafe.
I think it's
DeLaFay Cafe, something. Testimonies. And you never know, that drug addict could be the next church elder. You
Mm-hmm.
never know that a person who's gone through just severe relationship issues can be tomorrow's church leader, pastor, speaker, influencer. And so to view those around you as not Christians yet is something that might potentially change our mindset there. But anyways, any other thoughts, Zeke?
Yeah, I think I struggle with that a lot. If I look at people in my life, I'm just like, yeah, that's going to be hard to bring that person to Christ, as if like God can't do it. But then I think the example that we have in the Bible, there's this guy going around killing Christians and ordering them to be killed and watching them be stoned. And some of you may know him as Paul,
Oh,
yeah.
He kind of
What a
became like
character.
a big deal. And
Yes.
then, so if like someone like that can become a Christian, I mean, I don't think we should be putting limits on God on who can and can't.
Absolutely. So let's be praying, let's be talking, and Blake?
I just want to, like, for anybody that's listening to us, and we keep saying things like we want to bring people to Christianity. The reason why, and this is something that it's not projected in the social media or in the people that we watch. We don't want you to be a Christian because we want you to have the same ideas as us. We don't want you to come to Christianity because you'll vote for our political party. It's nothing like that. The reason why we are so strong in you wanting to become a Christian is because we want you to get to know God. We want you to experience that love and that joy. Sorry, I get choked up talking about this, so just ignore me.
That's important.
But just know what it's like to have somebody that loves you and has created a place for you that you can be with them, a being that is perfect and holy in everything that he does. I mean, to me, I tell people all the time, it's like, I don't want you to be a Christian so you can go to heaven. I want you to be a Christian because I want you to experience Jesus, because heaven is just a place.
Yeah.
If Jesus is not there, then that's what it is. I want you to experience that love of Christ. I want you to know who Christ is and how he can change you. And that's why we're so strong for it. We don't want you to have the same ideas as us. We want you to actually have peace.
Yeah, I'm gonna go off that a little bit. Gen Z and millennials too. A lot of us are right on that line there. They're very wary of institutions. Mm-hmm. They're very wary of authority figures, and so unfortunately, there's been a merger of the evangelical Christian with various political parties. And so when people think, oh, you want me to become a Christian because you want me to vote a certain way, we have to undo a lot of damage there.
Absolutely.
That, yeah, I'm all for voting and being active in your country and all that, but your faith is not, you're not tied to a certain political party. Like Blake is saying, we want you to experience a relationship. We want lives to be changed. We want you to have peace and joy, happiness, purpose, and we want you to come to know Jesus as your Lord and Savior, to worship him forever and enjoy all of his creation. That's why we're here, to worship him and enjoy him. And that's ultimately why, not for a particular voting, block, political party. So it's good that you mentioned that. Any other thoughts before we sign off?
Oh, one last thing. One last thing. This is kind of going back to like maybe the gospel message. I think we have to do a better job, us, when we want to preach the gospel to Gen Z, is to help them understand the language of the Bible. When they hear words like servants, obey your masters, wives, submit to your husbands. Like they hear these words and they're like, those have such negative, like, what's it called, connotations to it? Yeah, They have such negative connotations to it. And, as young Christians as we are, we're Gen Z Christians. We need to be able to sit down and take that time to explain to them, like, hey, this is what this meant. The Bible uses language that can reach all generations. But we as Christians, we have to do a better job of explaining that to people who are maybe a little bit apprehensive.
It's a cultural translation.
Yes.
For instance, the biblical idea of submission, when done well, is a beautiful thing. But if you talk with Gen Z about submission as the word is, there's so much, the language has changed, the culture has changed so much, they view that as a very bad thing or maybe a very sexual thing, and all of a sudden it's like, shoot, I have a lot of translation I need to do. So that's something, that's a good point to keep in mind. Spencer?
I think bringing it back to the Bible, it talks about nothing is new under the sun. So everything that we're experiencing right now, all these ideas that are coming out now, they're not new.
No.
They've happened at one point. There's been these objections to the Bible at some point, but one thing that hasn't changed is the gospel message. And I think what we do nowadays a lot is we get in the trenches, we get in the weeds when we're sharing the gospel, and we don't keep it simple. We make the road to heaven narrow for people, and we don't let them understand that it's all through Jesus. It's all through faith in Jesus.
All through Jesus, all through faith.
Yep.
Amen.
We want to say, hey, you have to believe in the Bible fully, 100% right now. But we got to play like the long game. Just keep it at, it's all about Jesus starting out. And then once you progress in your faith and your understanding of things, we need to keep that patience.
Yeah.
With people.
I think Spencer's hitting on an important point of I feel like this question isn't asked enough when talking to people who, like, if you see like YouTube shorts or TikTok or whatever, like people conversing with one another, like the Christian and the atheist or something. I think the most important question that needs to be asked more often is, they'll say like, well, Christians have done this, the church has done this, blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, what do you think about Jesus? I mean, because it's not the church that we're worshiping. We're not worshiping other Christians. Like the whole point, like Jesus says so himself. Like you have, I think it's in Mark 2, where the Pharisees, the religious leaders of the time, say, "Look at him. He's sitting with sinners and tax collectors," and they're like, "Why would he do that if he's who he claims to be?" He's like, "I didn't come for those who didn't need help. If you don't need help, I'm not for you." And of course, we know that everyone needs help, but he's saying like, if you don't acknowledge you need help, I can't help you. Like you take, for example, a doctor today. If you're sick and you have an illness and there's some medicine that would help you, but you're like, no, I'm not sick. I refuse to say that I'm sick. I refuse to say I need a doctor, that I need to go anywhere. A doctor can't help you if you don't acknowledge that you have something wrong with you. Same way, Jesus can't help you if you don't acknowledge that you have sin and stuff in your life you need fixed.
Yeah.
Going off of what Zeke, just a little ping pong off of that. God doesn't also expect you to get better to then start following him, if that makes sense. Like you don't have to, like, for instance, if you're wanting to go to church and you're struggling with something, you don't have to wait till you're not struggling with that.
You don't have to be perfect.
Yeah. And I think like God will take you as it is. And I think like when we went on a youth retreat, we read Hosea, and there was this part in Hosea that Trent Dodson, our youth pastor here at St. John's, he said, and it was beautiful. It opened up my eyes to it. When Hosea went to go get his wife again, he bought her, like, because his wife was a prostitute, in case we don't know the story of Hosea, but God told him to marry a prostitute.
Like, what's a prostitute?
Anyways,
no. Go
It is
on.
a very nice lady.
Like, go on.
Okay, but he had to go find his wife again, and he bought her back. But he didn't ask his wife to change. He took her as she was and built her back up. And that's how we should view our relationship with God. He will take you as you are, and he will fix you. So you don't have to have this overwhelming stress of, I need to clean up before I go to church, or I need to get rid of this. He'll take you. It's not even church. It's just having a relationship with him. He'll take you as you are.
Exactly.
And he'll build you back.
I think that's a good point. Zeke?
I'm going to pretty much say exactly what Blake said, but it has a little bit more to it, and it's because I heard it recently, and I was like, felt convicted because it was me. And something our pastor said not that long ago, he said, you hear about whenever Christians encounter non-Christians, they'll say, Christ accepts you as you are, but he won't leave you that way. And like they're immediately jumping to, yeah, but he won't leave you that way. That's true. He wasn't saying that wasn't true. Like you're saying, like he's going to fix you up, but he's going to take you as you are. He said, like, however, be okay with just saying, like, hey, Christ accepts you as you are. Pause. Let that sink in. And then, but he's not going to leave you that way.
Yeah.
We're so fast to jump to the other point, but people are like long stories. They're not going to change overnight.
No.
And I think that's something that this generation really wants to hear is like, they want to hear like they're okay as they are, which they're not. They're not okay as they are, but Christ accepts them as they are. And then over time, he will eventually make them well.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and there's another quote from our pastor. Shout out to Tom Rick.
Oh my gosh, the superstar of Coleman.
I'm pretty sure it's from him. He said, "You don't clean yourself up and then go to God. You go to God and then He'll clean you up."
Yeah, absolutely.
That's all that stuck with me.
I think that's a great quote. Any other thoughts, or we'll take this home? So we will look to have videos and podcast episodes come out pretty much weekly. So I'm thankful for all my friends here. They're pretty awesome as we get to spend a good amount of time together. So just be on the lookout for those videos as they come out. Like, share, subscribe. These are Dangerous Life videos, and that's under the umbrella of the Dangerous Faith Ministries. Until next time, we'll talk with you later.